Hey everyone! Welcome to this thrilling playthrough of Rome Must Fall, a solo roll and write game where you take on the mantle of the Roman emperors, battling to hold off the relentless barbarian invasions of the 5th century AD. In this game, it's you against history. Can you defend the crumbling Roman Empire from collapsing under the weight of barbarian hordes? Stick with me as we dive into a few action-packed turns, and I'll guide you through the strategy, tension, and tough choices you'll face. At the start of each turn, you'll roll your imperial dice during the resource phase. These dice are then assigned to defend against the barbarian and raid trackers, which represent the invading barbarian tribes, such as the Vandals, Visigoths, Franks, and Ostrogoths, as well as raiders like the Huns and the Sea Raiders in the Mediterranean sea lanes. Rolling a 6 triggers a Roman Glory ability, giving you the opportunity to gain special advantages like adding reserve cubes or removing barbarian control from a region. Alright, we start with the resource phase. This is where we roll our imperial dice and see what resources we have to allocate for the turn. Here's what we rolled. 2 1s, a 6, 2 3s, and a 5. Not a bad start, but we can do better. In this phase, I can use my Roman abilities to adjust the dice and gain additional resources, and I've got some tricks up my sleeve. Before I forget, I will use an ability that grants me a bonus red cube to add to my Roman reserves each turn. First, I'm going to use my ability to re-roll one of those ones. I really want higher numbers to fend off the barbarian hordes. Let's see what we get, a 5 factorial. That's much better. Now I'll use another ability to add +1 to that 5, making it a 6. Why is this important? Well, in Fall of Rome, any roll of a 6 triggers a Roman Glory ability, and that gives me a chance to gain crucial advantages. Since I now have not 1 but 2 6s, I'm going to use both of them to add 2 more red cubes to my Roman reserves. These are vital for reinforcing my defense later, so I'm setting myself up for future turns. Alright, we've rolled our dice in the resource phase, and now it's time for the Roman phase. This is where the real strategic decisions come into play. Each barbarian tribe has a timeline with numbers inside for each turn. This shows how aggressive they are and is represented by a value, ranging from 0 to 3, plus the roll of a D3 barbarian die. Players must assign dice to exceed this combined value. This mechanic introduces a layer of strategic risk management. The visible base value gives you partial information, but the random modifier adds uncertainty, requiring you to carefully weigh the risk before committing resources. Now I'll allocate my dice across the barbarian and raid trackers, and hopefully our defenses can hold. I've placed a 3 on the Vandal tracker, facing their timeline value of 1. Remember, the Vandals are aggressive in this period, but I feel confident that we've got enough to hold them back. Next, we're defending against the Visigoths with a 5. Their timeline value is 3, so I'm placing a strong defense here. The Visigoths are one of the most dangerous tribes, and we need to make sure we stay ahead of their invasion forces. Over on the Franks tracker, I've placed another 3. They're not as aggressive this turn, with a timeline value of 1, so we should be able to handle their advance without too much trouble. For the war at sea, I've allocated a powerful 6. The Sea Raiders have a timeline value of 1, so this is a decisive defense. I really don't want to lose control of the Mediterranean, because that would trigger a penalty and weaken our defenses further. Now for the Huns. I've placed a 1 here, which may not seem like much, but since their timeline value is currently 0, that should be enough to keep them at bay this turn. It's a calculated risk, but one I'm comfortable with. And finally, I've placed another 6 against the Ostrogoths. Their timeline value is 0 as well, so this defense is overkill, but it guarantees that we won't lose any ground here. Now that our defenses are set, it's time to roll the barbarian die and see if Rome can withstand the onslaught. Let's hope my decisions pay off. All right, it's time for the barbarian phase. This is where we see if the defenses I've set up can hold against the barbarian onslaught. The barbarians are advancing, and now we roll the barbarian die to resolve the attacks, starting with the Vandals. I roll for the Vandals. It's a 3. Adding that to their timeline value of 1 gives a total of 3, which matches my allocated 3. Unfortunately, I need to beat that value to win. Not looking to lose this territory early on, I'm going to spend a red cube from my reserves to boost my die value by +1, making it a 4. That gives me the edge I need to successfully defend against the Vandals this turn. I'll mark off the current timeline box to show we've held the line. Now for the Visigoths. I roll the black barbarian die. And it's a 6. Adding that to their timeline value of 3 gives us a massive total of 6. There's no way I can beat that, and I don't want to waste any more of my red cubes here. So I'll mark the timeline box and place a marker at the Visigoths' starting location on the map. The Visigoths are making their move in Hispania. Moving on to the Franks. I roll a 4 for them, which added to their timeline value of 1 gives a total of 3. That's a tie with my 3 here. Ties count as losses, but I really want to hold this region, so I'll spend another red cube to bump my die up to a 4. That's enough to secure the region and stop the Franks in their tracks, for now. Now for the war at sea. I've got a 6 here against their 1 in the timeline, so let's see what happens. 2. I roll a 2. With their timeline value of 1, that brings their total to 2. I easily defend the sea lanes with my 6. No sea raids on my watch. Next up are the Huns. They're dangerous, and I've only got a 1 here. I roll a 4 for them, which means they break through with a total of 3 against my 1. Losing to the Huns doesn't mean losing territory right away. Instead, I mark a box below on their raid tracker. Unfortunately, I now suffer a penalty. As a penalty for losing to the Huns, I have to exchange one of my white Imperial dice for a red die. Red dice are weaker, acting as D3s, and that's going to make future turns more challenging. I'll move this red die into my dice pool to remind me that we're fighting with fewer resources. Finally, we've got the Ostrogoths. I roll a 3 for them, and with their timeline value of 0, that gives them a total of 2. I've got a 6 here, so we easily win this one and prevent the Ostrogoths from advancing. That concludes the Barbarian phase for turn 1. We held off most of the Barbarian tribes, though the Visigoths have made their first move, and the Huns have inflicted a penalty on us. I've still got some reserves left, but as the game goes on, defending the Empire will only get harder. Unfortunately, that's it for today. How much of Rome's former glory can you manage to preserve before the Empire finally succumbs to the barbarians? It's not a question of whether Rome will fall, but how long you can hold the barbarians at bay. Good luck.